Dear colleagues, I would like to start this presentation, which we are doing together with my colleague Asier Hilario, by going back a little bit to the UNESCO Geopark concept, and thus in a very simple way. As you have already understood above all, a UNESCO Geopark is a territory we must have a geological heritage of international value. In consequence, geoparks are places with a strong presence of the memory of the earth. If the geological heritage is essential in a geopark, it is not enough. The territory aspiring to become a UNESCO geopark must also have knowledge and consideration for its other territorial heritage, of its natural heritage. And this concerns, of course, fragile ecosystems, biodiversity, protected area, and so on. Geopark must also consider their cultural heritage. For example, historical monuments, elements of traditional architecture, archaeological sites, rock art. Likewise, a geopark must take into account its intangible heritage, which is, without any doubt, the most endangered heritage in the world. Traditional know-how, local languages, tales, legends, cosmogonies, and much more. The geopark must take into consideration around the geological heritage all its territorial heritage, highlighting all the interconnection that may exist between the geological heritage and the other heritages. This different heritage must be intimately connected with the population of the territory so that, thanks to their promotion and their valuation, new policies of sustainable development can be implemented. A UNESCO geopark must be a living territory, with a population proud to live there, with a desire to imagine a different future for this territory. For the sake of clarification, I would like to share with you the semantic of the word geopark. As we all know, since the beginning of humanity, the first sacred sites were mainly geological sites that strongly marked the landscape, such as this mountain called Uluru in Australia, or this mountain in Tibet, which still receive important pilgrimage, or this one in Ethiopia. Much later, the first human civilization developed specific cults dedicated to Mother Earth. To represent Earth, this prehistoric population creates sculpture of female form, a fertile femininity, and this representation on the screen are around 20,000 years old. This cult of Mother Earth is found in Greek mythology, and in Greek language this goddess Mother Earth is called Ge, Gaia, Geo. From the geo prefix, other words have been developed over the time. Geometry, the measure of the earth. Geography, the description of the earth. Geomorphology, the form, the shape of the earth. And geology, the study of the earth. Consequently, in the name geopark, we have geo, which means the earth, Mother Earth, and park, a zone, a space. Therefore, conceptually, etymologically, and practically, a geopark is absolutely not a geological park, as it is not an open-air geological museum. With this definition that we have now in common, I would like to invite you to explore in more details some fundamental aspects of UNESCO geoparks.
Dear colleagues, dear friends, it is a pleasure for me to share with you some basic ideas and good experiences about the UNESCO Global Geoparks. We are living in a very beautiful planet. After millions of years of natural evolution and after thousands of years of cultural evolution, humans have adapted to live together in this planet. But I would say that things have changed dramatically in the last decades. World population has increased very fast, and up to now we are 7.7 billion inhabitants on Earth, and more than 50% of the people live in big cities, where globalization is the main trend. I would say that cities from different parts of the world and citizens from different parts of the world look more and more the same. We are losing authenticity, and somehow we are losing our original identity. And if you permit me, I would also say that we are losing connection, and this is something very important. We are losing connection with our Mother Earth, and geoparks can really help reconnecting us with our Mother Earth. That is why I think that UNESCO Global Geoparks can really function like lighthouses for a better future in the planet. I think that we can do that because we have something very important. We have something unique. We have the memory of the Earth. Our planet is 4.6 billion years old, and some of the most important chapters of this unbelievable story have been written in the rocks and the landscapes of our geoparks, of our territories. They are part of one of the most important, exciting encyclopedias that have been ever written, which is the history of the Earth.
100 million years. A scale of time so vast that most of us cannot conceive its actual magnitude. But geologists try. They scrutinize the landscape and analyze every rock fragment in an attempt to understand how we got here and what the planet looked like long before humans made their very recent entry into evolutionary history.
For example, we can have unbelievable paleontological sites where fossils are going to tell us about the evolution of life. We can find huge dinosaurs, we can find beautiful ammonites, or even we can find some of the most important paleoanthropological sites that tell us about where we come from and therefore how we can evolve in the future.
Olduvai Gorge is a world-famous archaeological location in Tanzania, East Africa, and it is widely regarded as the cradle of mankind. It is one of the most important prehistoric sites in the world. Olduvai Gorge carries some of the oldest evidence of the remains of the earliest humans. It is here where Mary and Louis Leakey unearthed the first well-dated artifacts and fossils of the earliest humans, including Zinjanthropus skull, early stone tools, Homo erectus, and the larger-brained hominin that preceded the earliest modern humans.
Paleontological sites tell us also about the 5 big mass extinctions that happened on Earth history. Ecologists are already telling us that we are living on the 6th big mass extinction. And it is very important for us to understand what happened in the past, to know how we need to behave now in the present and in the future in order to avoid this 6th big mass extinction. Climate change. Climate change is one of the most important challenges that we will have to face in the future. And we will have to do it together. There is no other way. But it is absolutely necessary that we need to understand the real importance and the real relevance of climate change. And for that, we need to understand how the system works and how the climate has been working all along Earth history. In our geoparks, we have geological sites where we can read very well how the climate has been evolving in the last thousands of years or even in the last millions of years. We have sites where we can get very, very valuable information about some of the most important warming events on Earth history. We can learn about the consequences that happened a lot of years ago, and then we can adapt those consequences to the ones that we are expecting now for the next decades. So somehow, geoparks can become into real laboratories to understand what climate change is now and how the climate used to work in the past. The geology of our landscapes tell us also about something very, very deep. They are telling us that we are living in a dynamic planet where even mountains can disappear, a dynamic planet where the continents move, a dynamic planet where the geographies change. It is only a matter of time. And if you permitted me, this approach, this philosophical approach, help us understanding that the slide of the landscape that we are seeing today, it's only a very short slide of a much, much longer story of evolution. This philosophical approach also help us understanding that we just arrived to this beautiful planet, that we are very small, but at the same time that we have had the power to change and to destroy many of the ecosystems on Earth. And this is something that we need to reconsider for the present and for the future. We have a huge responsibility. Geoparks are somehow the guardians of the memory of the Earth. We need to work for the conservation of our geological heritage.
We're on the western end of the island, amid the remains of a vast forest, but the trees are now stone. It is one of the world's great petrified forests. An ancient volcano covered them in ash. Now, 20 million years later, you can still see their leaves, bark, and tissues.
We need to work for the conservation of our geological heritage, of our natural heritage, of our cultural identity. But geoparks do not have any legal statutes to work for the protection of this geological heritage. But we have something more important. We have the people. Our strategy is to connect local people with their geological heritage and to make them feel that this geological heritage belongs to them and it's part of a much, much wider heritage that is distributed in all the planet. Our strategy is to put the geological heritage, the natural heritage, and the cultural heritage in the center of a development strategy of our territories. After 20 years of experience, we can really say that education and geotourism are very, very useful tools, very effective tools to work for the conservation of our geological heritage. Education is one of our main tools for resilience. Geoparks are territories for the future, and therefore geoparks are territories with education. Education is one of the main pillars of any development strategy in any geopark in the world. We have beautiful geoschools in different geoparks, in different countries, in different cultures. And these geoschools are giving us an added value because they are talking about local nature, local landscape, local traditions, local culture. This is somehow a very, very useful tool to promote the pride of belonging to this community. But geo schools are giving us also an added value because since the beginning they work with the sustainable development goals, and this is something very, very important for the integral development of our children. We have beautiful geo schools in different parts of the world, and thanks to the network, to the Global Geoparks network, they are connected. They can share their experiences and they can even move from one place to the other and having very, very good experiences for them. Even now, during the pandemic, that we cannot travel, geoparks have worked very, very hard on education. We have created dozens of different educational programs for our families and our children to be connected with the geopark, to be connected among them. And this is one way to show that education is one of our main tools for resilience in UNESCO Global Geoparks.
I am bored and feeling flat. Is there anything fun? At that time, let's go to Mudungshan Global Geopark. You can meet the living geological heritages through various geo-education programs. Then let's find out what there are. First program, Geo School. At Geo School, you can learn geology in general, such as earthquake, volcano, dinosaurs, and more through geosites of Mudungshan area. Students from elementary school 3rd grade to 6th grade can participate. Second program, Let's Make My Own Fold. At this program, we can find out what shape the earth we live in looks like and make fold structure using rubber clay. Also, we learn that we are a part of nature by meeting the animals and plants living in Gwangchuho Lake.
Science and education are again a very, very useful tool to work with the mitigation and adaptation for natural disaster risk. We are living in a powerful dynamic planet and some of our territories are exposed to this natural risk. Some of them are related to climate change, but some of them are not. We are talking about volcanic eruptions or earthquakes or landslides, for example. And in most of the cases, there is nothing we can do to avoid them, but there is much we can do to mitigate their effects. We can do that, for example, by promoting research that will give us some idea of the distribution of the risk in the territories, and therefore it can help us planifying how we can react in different places of our territory. And above all, we can define a very accurate reaction plans that can be disseminated among the population and can be included in our geo schools, in our educational programs. So we can really make people understand that they are living in a dynamic planet that can have some risk, so they can understand really which is the risk of the territory they are living and which is the way that they have to react in the moment that the risk is going to happen. By doing this, geoparks have shown that even we can save lives, like it happened in the past in some volcanic eruptions or earthquakes. So geoparks are really territories of resilience. Geoparks are really territories of authenticity. Geoparks are really territories of science, of culture, and of education. Geoparks are territories based on the memory of the earth that work for the future of the people.
UNESCO geoparks are the new territories of the 21st century. Territory where the memory of the earth weaves links with the memory of human society. Two different timescales that come together to provide to the geopark territory new sustainable and integrated economic development strategy. UNESCO Geopark do not exist only with their official diploma that will be hung on a wall and quickly forgotten over the years under the dust. UNESCO Geopark, as I've said before, are living territories in perpetual evolution and in constant research for improvement. They are living territories and territories for dialogue, reflection, and UNESCO Geoparks can only exist with a different concept and a different approach. They can only be created and lived through the full involvement of the local population and thus at all stages of the process, at the level of the creation, definition of the territory, choice of the strategical development, as well as for their management. The creation of UNESCO Geopark must be the result of a true bottom-up process in which the local population, without any exclusion, must take part. Creating a successful geopark is a long process. Between the moment of the idea of creating a geopark and the official sending of its candidature to UNESCO, it takes an average time of 3 to 4 years, and this, of course, with a complete team dedicated to the project and working full-time on this. Some territories, which have now become UNESCO Geopark, have spent more than 8 years of work before submitting their candidatures. The boundaries of the UNESCO Geopark territory must be recognized by its population and must constitute an identity territory understood and accepted by all. All components of the local population must, above all, understand what a UNESCO Geopark project is and what could be its interest for the territory. A successful geopark project requires its perfect understanding and total ownership by its local population. Here we see an example of an exchange and consultation meeting with the local population of a French UNESCO geopark. And to obtain the adapted involvement of the population, this geopark organized such meeting twice a year in each of the 60 municipalities of its territory.
Je pense que cette intervention a été utile pour informer les gens de l'existence des géoparcs. Parce que beaucoup de gens, en fait, ne savent pas ce que c'est que le géoparc. Aujourd'hui, j'ai appris que le géoparc rassemblait beaucoup de cultures, d'habitudes des régions, des pays.
Finalement, on est très fiers d'habiter cette région et après, ça donne envie d'aider. Tous ceux qui justement font la recherche, se dévouent avec passion, on l'a entendu ce soir, avec passion finalement. C'est même plus une question d'argent, c'est de la passion. Donc, alors s'il y avait un petit peu d'argent avec la passion, quand même, ça aiderait pas mal, quoi. Donc on rêve quand même un petit peu qu'on soit un peu plus aidé pour continuer à rechercher les belles choses de notre territoire.
The involvement of the local population in a geopark process is fundamental. And this is even more true when the geopark has in its population the presence of indigenous population. Almost 30% of UNESCO geoparks have an indigenous population, and thus in Africa, America, and Asia. Inside the 8 articles of the official guidelines of UNESCO geopark, 2 of these articles are specifically devoted to indigenous populations, and they underline the need to integrate this population in all stages of a geopark project and in its management. These articles also stress the importance of having the geoparks strongly involved in the preservation of their culture as well as for their empowerment. Many new geoparks around the world, mostly in developing countries, are very fortunate to have indigenous population. Some geoparks even present one of the greatest human diversity in the world. For example, in North Vietnam, 18 ethnic groups live in the UNESCO Dong Van Geopark, which has only an area of 2,000 square kilometers. Indigenous peoples are among the most vulnerable groups of people in the world today. A large part of them are in a precarious situation. And you know perfectly that UNESCO places the needs of these peoples among its priority areas. A UNESCO geopark must be aware of its responsibility towards the indigenous population living in its territory and must fully work to defend and consolidate their full participation, their cultural identity, and their fundamental rights. This involvement and participation of the population in the geopark process is also necessary to ensure one of its primary missions, which is to bring new, sustainable, and integrated economic development to its population. You have already understood that a territory geopark is not only a conservation area, but above all, a sustainable development area. Of course, one of the first tools of this sustainable economic development is linked with tourism, or rather geotourism. Geotourism is defined as tourism that supports and improves the identity of a territory, taking into account its geology, its environment, its culture, its aesthetic values, its heritage, and the well-being of its residents. Geological tourism is just one of the various components of geotourism. We are talking about geotourism, about sustainable and integrated tourism, which is totally different, and I would like to say opposed to what is a destructive mass tourism, which is unsustainable, as it was unfortunately been demonstrated in the past, and once again, dramatically during this COVID epidemic. With geotourism, we are talking about respectful tourism, where the inhabitants develop, for example, quality accommodation, structures of small capacity, favoring traditional architecture. A tourism where the inhabitants, through ambassadors of the geopark, are trained as guides and share with tourists not only their knowledge, but also their culture, their know-how, their traditions. Thus, visitors will be able to enjoy a unique experience in the geopark, a real journey through time and space, through the time of the years and that of human societies. But tourism, or rather geotourism, is fortunately not the only economic development tool of a geopark. Some territories are not suitable for receiving tourists for many reasons. Reasons of lack of equipment, access difficulties, or protection needs. In this case, it is therefore necessary to develop alternatives so that these territories can benefit from appropriate sustainable economical development. One of the important strategies developed by Geopark is the enhancement and promotion of local products. These local products, selected on the basis of quality criteria established by the Geopark, benefit from the Geopark image and can acquire high added value such as new geographical distribution. The Geopark in this process must put in place not only the criteria, but the necessary means to ensure the promotion of these products through websites, regional, national, or international organization of its local products, and so on. For example, the UNESCO Geopark de la Catalunya Central in Spain organized a large gastronomic fair, presenting the labeled products of the geopark by inviting participants to a tasting game.
Tung Pru, he is a director of UNESCO Global Geopark. And we both visiting here because he's taking us to meet and talk with the local community groups as a Stool Geopark, which is promoting the sale of the local products from the communities and its network through different activities. So here is one part. I'm going to ask him about how does Global Geopark of the Stool helping the people in promoting the product of the people มันช่วยยังไงได้บ้างคะ
คือวิสาหกิจชุมชนในเครือข่าย Geopark กลุ่มนี้ก็เป็นกลุ่มปลูกพริกไทย
UNESCO geoparks are unique territories which can only exist and function in an inclusive way. They are inclusive territories, first of all in terms of their heritage. In a geopark, the cultural heritage, both tangible and intangible, their natural heritage meet a new meaning and coherence thanks to their new connection with the geological heritage. Geological heritage which was, in the still recent past, totally absent from territorial development plans and strategy. Geoparks are also inclusive territories at the level of their population, which has to participate without any exclusion in the definition of the geopark territory, its process, and its vision for the future. In a UNESCO geopark, geology in itself is not an end, but a mean, a bridge. Geology brings us a knowledge and understanding of the Earth, its past, its evolution, its mechanism, and constitutes a new door to understand in another way the world in which we live. New territories of the 21st century, the UNESCO Geopark are territories, memory of the Earth. They are territories of research, culture, economic development, and because they are inclusive territories, they are territories of resilience with a population who takes pride in living there and who builds a different future. UNESCO Geopark must be living territories, territories of project, territories of cohesion and social peace, territories of meaning, the territories of tomorrow. Thank you very much for your attention.